In the modern age of the internet and competitive music scene, everyone and their grandma is or aspires to become a DJ. This also incentivizes big corporations to find ways to limit creativity behind a hefty price. One of the main culprits of this is Pioneer DJ, with their extreme turntable and mixer prices, which is what most professional bars and radios use and offer to their artists to perform with. This means that if you don't own the gear, you have to make do with the few times that you actually get to touch it, or find alternatives. And find alternatives we will. Before I start the showcase/tutorial, I firstly want to talk a little bit about the options that DJs have when it comes to mixing gear. So if you just want to skip to the tutorial section, then you are welcome to do so. Now, I already hear people in the comment section screaming, why not use the DDJ200 or the Tractor S2 or just get the Z1, since for most DJs, 2 tracks and EQ work just fine. And I agree, for the most part, you could definitely use 2 tracks and even just your mouse to mix with to create a great mix. However, that can lead into some limitations. Ultimately, whatever gear you own currently is perfect for mixing. However, if you really want to look at something that's a little bit more advanced or just that offers more options, then I think the Launch Control XL in this case is great for that purpose. So let's say that I have decided on 4 effects and 4 decks. You might be thinking that there are solid options for that as well. For example, the DDJ 1000 and the Tractor S3 or the Allen & Heath X1 K2. Now, these are all great options. However, as I mentioned before, most of them that are the cheapest ones, for example, the Tractor S3, it does not really give you any control towards all 4 effects that you can have. And the Allen & Heath X1 K2, you can map into a 4-track mixer, but you cannot control any of the effects because of the limited amount of knobs. There are a few caveats when it comes to the Launch Control XL, and things which you will have to give up if you want to use this custom mapping. The first one is the jog wheels, which you can use to scroll through the track, beat match, and scratch. If you are someone who is interested in learning scratching, then this controller will do none of that. As for beat matching, I usually do not do it manually, since 99% of the time, the software will do it just fine automatically. Be aware that the more gear you add into the mix, the more the price will go up exponentially, which is why I have decided to keep the price at a bare minimum. The second thing you have to give up is also easy scrolling through the track, which I also mentioned in the last point. However, in some controllers, such as the Tractor S line, this control is mapped to an encoder, which you can use to very easily scroll and pick whichever point you need to use in the track. This is not a necessity, since it is suggested that you create cue points for your track before your performance. The third thing you have to give up is the built-in sound card, which in my opinion is the biggest caveat when it comes to this setup. Since if you want to really use this in bars or radios with high quality sound systems, then the laptop quality will not do, so you will need to purchase a separate sound card. That may not sound appealing to many of you, since you just wanted to DJ and not buy more gear. However, if you look at the price of the Launch Control XL and the sound card, it's still cheaper than many of the 4-deck controllers. Portability, I'd say, is also a non-issue and even a pro of this setup, since the Launch Control XL itself is pretty small and you could have that and a mixer inside your backpack and not need a separate carrying case for your very expensive piece of gear that you bought. I will link some sound cards in the description below which you can use and should have about the same quality as most internal DJ controller sound cards that you can find in the market. Lastly, although most functionality is included in this mapping, some of them are hidden behind shift functionality, which means that it can be tricky to get used to. From my experience so far, once you learn it, it becomes second nature. After all, even the popular layout of many DJ controllers needs some getting used to, and with every new gear that you need to use, you will need to learn something new. Now that I've extensively justified the hours I put into making the perfect DJing device, at least for me, let's actually see how it works. To start with the basics, let's look at the half left side of the controller. Each deck is laid out in a linear fashion from left to right. The first column corresponds to deck A, the second to deck B, the third to deck C, and the fourth to deck D. Each knob in the first four columns adjusts the highs, mids, and lows. Each slider adjusts the volume fader, and the first row of 4 buttons is the play, while the second is the cue. To demonstrate this functionality, we first have to learn how to load tracks into each deck. This is done through a shift mapping, which seemed the most reasonable to me. If we press the record arm button, the UI will extend the song browser. Using the Send Select buttons, we can navigate up or down to select a track. To load the track, hold the device button, and then press one of the track focus buttons in the first 4 columns, corresponding to the deck you want to load the track in. With the cue button under track control, we can now cue the track, and then, while holding it, press the play button so it continues its playback. After pressing the play button, it will turn into a different hue of green, which means that the track is currently playing. To activate loop mode, you press the device button and solo button at the same time. The button matrix will update accordingly, giving you the option to create a 1-beat, 4-beat, 8-beat, or 16-beat loop. Holding the mute button will temporarily toggle the half-left side of the button matrix. This mode allows you to control sync with the first row of buttons, as well as the master with the second. Be aware that the deck needs to be playing for it to become tempo master. To access Hotcues, press the solo button. The whole button matrix will be updated to a new mode. With this mode, you can access hotcues that you have set beforehand, or set new ones on the fly. Moving on to the half-right side of the controller. This side has 2 modes you can switch between: Effects mode or Utility mode. You can use the left track select button to switch to effects mode, and the right one to switch to utility mode. In utility mode, the layout is similar to the left side of the controller, meaning each column corresponds to a deck from left to right. In this case, however, the first row of knobs adjusts the gain, the second row adjusts the filter, and the third row adjusts the key in each deck. The slider in this mode adjusts the tempo. In utility mode, the half right side of the button matrix offers you control to the deck filter as well as the tempo. The first row of buttons toggle the deck filter on and off, while the second row returns the song to its original tempo. Keep in mind that this is done in software. In order to control the tempo with the slider once again, you have to put it in the same location as it is in software. This is done to avoid sudden tempo changes when switching between modes. When using multiple decks, you also have to make sure that the track you want to change the tempo to is master. The tempo slider can cause sudden tempo changes, which aren't usually pleasant to the ear, which is why you have to make sure that the change is gradual and not as big. To switch to effects mode, press the left track select button. The half right side of the controller will update accordingly to emphasize the mode change. Press one of the 4 dimly lit buttons in the first row to activate an effect. Holding the device button and then pressing mute will change the whole button matrix into effects routing mode. In this case, there are 4 buttons for 4 effects inserts into each deck. You can change the parameters for every effect with the 4 knobs in each column. Meanwhile, the slider changes the dry-wet of every effect. This mapping still has some features which it's missing. One of them would be effect navigation, as well as headphone cue control. I'm still looking at the best way to implement these features. If you have any ideas, you can leave them on the comment below or maybe open an issue on GitHub. I have documented all of the features as well as a short tutorial on how to get started with this mapping on GitHub as well as on a PDF format. I suggest you read through it if you are looking to get started in using this controller as your main DJing device. The rest of this video is a simple showcase of how I personally use this controller to DJ with. Be aware that This was in the beginning when I just made the mapping, so I am not quite as efficient as I am right now, as this video has been taking a while to make. If you want to hear another mix made with this controller, you can see the link down below where I've made a set for comrade.net.
Cloud.